What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of High-End Client Acquisition Podcast. My name is Marian, and today we got Dan Lok as a guest. He's an international best-selling author, huge YouTube influencer, accomplished a lot of things throughout his journey from immigrating to Canada, learning the language, going through some family hardship, and a lot of other things. To be honest, the lessons that I learned personally in this episode are worth so much. I can't even say how important it is for you to pay attention to details on this one. Let's jump right into it. Welcome to High-End Client Acquisition Podcast. My name is Marian. I'm your host, and this show is here to teach you how to attract your dream clients on autopilot in 30 days or less. Each week, I bring you a guest or a strategy that can help you take your business to the next level. Don't forget, you can always get the episodes in your inbox or messenger at clientacquisitionpodcast.com. All right, so first of all, I want to mention a couple things. The main reason I wanted Dan on my podcast is I relate so much to his journey. He's an immigrant in Canada. I'm an immigrant in the United States. He's actually one of my mentors. I've been through the High Ticket Closer certification program. More on that towards the end of the interview. But you know, Dan accomplished so many things in the last 10 years or so, and a lot of us don't see the behind the scenes of this journey, right? And, you know, I really want to start the interview with this question. And Dan, if you can please tell us how it was your life in the first 5 years of immigrating to Canada.
Well, it was hell. So I was born in Hong Kong. So I immigrated to Canada when I was 14 years old. And shortly after that, my mom and dad got divorced when I was 16 years old. So I was the only child in my family growing up. So my mom basically raised me up. So at the time when we first moved to Canada, we were staying in a one-bedroom small condo. My mom was to stay in the living room. No, I would stay in the bedroom. I would sleep on the floor in the living room with like a bed or something like that. It was not very good. And at the time, I was going to high school, and I was one of only 3 Chinese in my school. So I got bullied every single week. I got beat up, and people made fun of me because I was like little guy, short guy. Now I'm a little bit stronger, but back then I was like 105 pounds. So it's I was like so skinny, right? So I got pushed around, and they made fun of my accent because I couldn't talk. And I had no friends. Like I was one of those guys that I would sit in the very back of the classroom, and I would never put up my hand because I was afraid to talk. And I would have no friends, and you would be in class with me for 2-3 semesters, and you would not know my name. Because every day after I finished school, I would take my backpack and I wouldn't even make contact with anybody. I was so afraid of making connection with people. I would look on the floor, and I would just walk and kind of don't walk in the center, just on the side. All the lockers are this way, and I would just go home and I wouldn't talk to anybody. And it went on for many, many months, right?
Wow, that was a really tough part of your life, I bet. I can only imagine, what you've been through. But with that being said, you still pushed strongly. You still pushed forward. What do you think was your motivation back then, and how do you see that?
Okay. So at first, he was sending some money and some allowance to my mom so we could live. Yep. And I remember one day when I went home, the door was closed from the bedroom, and I heard my mom was on the phone. I can roughly hear she was crying on the phone. And I wasn't sure what's going on, so I kind of like eavesdropped. What's going on? And I knock. Hey, Mom, is everything okay? Oh, don't worry about it. Just everything's okay. Then after that, I talked to her, and she was clearly crying. And I always remember that look on her face. It was a look of hopelessness, because that's when my dad told my mom that he couldn't send us money anymore, that we're pretty much on our own. And I remember that face. I still remember it very clearly. I said to myself, I never want to see that face again. I don't care what the fuck it takes. I never want to see that facial expression on my mom ever again. And I said, I'll do whatever it takes, I'll make the money, I'll be successful so that she doesn't have to worry and I'll never see the face again. And that's when I said, okay, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I'm gonna get a job, I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna make money, whatever it takes to take care of my family. So my childhood, my teenage years, unlike most people, I didn't actually have much of a teenage years because when my friends were drinking, they're partying, they're chasing girls, I was working. Like for the first 5 years of my career, starting in high school, I started my first business when I was in high school. And even in college, I was always have something on the side.
Yeah.
Always building my company, working on my thing. And yeah, I didn't take a single day off for 5 years straight. I didn't watch a single sports game. I still don't watch sports game. I don't know what that stuff is like, what basketball team or what team is whatever. So I had no clue. And so the first 5 years, people look at me as, oh, like I'm still a young guy. I'm like 37 years old. I've accomplished a lot, done a lot of things. Mainly because I sacrificed a lot in those early days. I did what most people would not do, so now I can have what most people won't have, right? First of all, I believe communication equals wealth. So if you want to be successful in an English-speaking country, you got to learn the language. You cannot just stay in your own comfort zone and hang out with friends and people that only speak your language. If you want to make money, you want to be successful, you got to communicate with people. So at the time, I would just very simply, I have my dictionary, and every single day I would write on a little index card, and every single day I want to learn one word. That was it. I write down, here's a word, I don't know what that means. Okay, I write it down, and I would pronounce, I try to do it. And at the time, I had these dictionary. So it would pronounce the word for you. I would listen to it, and I would try to do it, and I would listen to it, and I would try. I do it more and more and more. And I still speak with an accent today, so don't let that hold you back. It doesn't mean anything. But what I'm saying is, if you want to create wealth, you have to learn the language. You have to commit to learning a language, because unless you know how to communicate with people, forget about doing business. You cannot. You just cannot do it. So, and then later on, I joined Toastmasters, which is a non-profit, in case you don't know, to learn public speaking. Then I was joined it to boost my confidence, to overcome my anxiety of speaking, and that helped as well. Because I think a lot of immigrants work very hard, okay? You're watching this, you know you work very hard. But I think a lot of immigrants, at the same time, a lot of them don't become successful. So I'm not a big proponent. I know there are like different people talking, oh, you gotta hustle. You always gotta hustle. You got to hustle, but I think you got to hustle the right way. So it's not just hustling, it's about, like, I'm a big believer in developing your own, what I call your high income skills. In order to make more money, in order to be more successful, you have to have something valuable that you offer to the marketplace. Your talent, your ideas, your expertise, whatever that is, doesn't matter what it is. Once you have that, you need to find ways to keep increasing your value so you can earn more. So it's not just hustling. I mean, if you're working at a dead-end job as a dishwasher, I don't care how many dishes you wash, you're not going to be very successful. You can hustle, but that's not it. You got to hustle the right way. So that's number one. And then second thing, I think what changed my life, the answer for me was I found my mentor. That may not be the answer for everybody, but that was the answer for me. I was reading the books, I was attending the seminars, I was hustling. My life was struggling, I was just struggling a lot until I found my first mentor. His name is Alan. So Alan took me under his wings, and he taught me how the world works, how business works.
Interesting. For someone that's full-time employed and maybe want to break through and jump into their own thing, what's your advice on that?
The first year when I was learning from a mentor, I worked for him for 1 year for next to nothing, just basically as a volunteer. But I always refer that year as the $1 million year of my life, because I got $1 million worth of education from that year from him. So I wasn't just working for the skill. He taught me business, taught me marketing, how all this stuff works. So that was extremely, extremely valuable. So later on, when I started my own thing, from that experience, I took it to, of course, start my own business. But I already have a decent foundation. That you cannot get from a book. That you cannot get from an interview. You cannot get from a podcast. You get it one-on-one.
No, it makes perfect sense.
It's like, think about, as you know, you probably know I'm a martial artist. Yeah. Right? My background is, you think about back then in ancient history, how one master who has a deadly martial art skill How does he pass the skill on to somebody else? It's not, I'll show you a video, or here's some DVD, or here's a podcast. No.
It doesn't work that way.
It's a one-on-one, closed door, behind door. I'm gonna teach you, you're gonna practice, I'm gonna correct you, right? You're gonna practice. That's how skills are transferred. Same thing in business.
No, but it makes so much sense. I mean, we all have access to the same level of information, but not so many get it to the level that they should, correct? So yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
It doesn't change. It's the same thing. Less than 6% of the population makes over $325,000 a year. Less than 1% of the population, no, less than 6% of the population makes over $100,000 a year. Less than 1% of the population makes over more than $325,000 a year. You look at anyone by the age of 65, only most people are dead or dead broke. Only less than 1% succeed financially. I don't care if it's the internet, I don't care if it's Instagram, I don't care if it's YouTube, their statistics doesn't change. In spite of, now we have so much information out there, we have so much knowledge out there, so many books out there, it's the same. It's still that 1%. You would think everybody can have access to this information, same. 10 years later with artificial intelligence, guess what? The statistics is the same. It doesn't change. It hasn't changed in many years.
That's so true. Now, let's say someone accomplished those skills and at the beginning stages of their business, let's say they start working one-on-one. It can be freelance work, coaching online, in the health space, etc. What's the next step for them?
That is a topic I could talk for like probably 3 hours, but I'll give you a couple important tips. First of all, there is absolutely no relationship between being good at what you do and getting paid. Zero. I don't care how good you are, how much experience you have. There's a huge relationship between being good at what you do, being able to close, and getting paid. So the first thing is you have to learn to communicate your value, how to close someone on your service. Let's say you're a freelancer right now, you're charging, I don't know, $2,000 a project. Okay, you do the same amount of work. That's cool. Let's say you're talking to a client, and let's say your closing skill is better than before. You're more confident on the phone. By talking to the client, instead of charging $2,000, you're gonna charge $4,000. And you close that client because you could close.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you're making twice as much money doing the same work. You have not changed. Your skill has not changed. What you do has not changed. What has changed is your ability to close. By improving that, suddenly your earning ability dramatically improves. Now, here's the thing. What if you could close $6,000? What if you could close $10,000? Notice, I'm one of the highest paid consultants. Does that mean I'm best in the world? Maybe, maybe not. I'm definitely one of the most expensive. And what determines if you're expensive or not is the marketplace willing to pay you for what you charge. Can you find someone maybe somewhere, some place in the world, they know a little bit more about X than I do? Who knows? But definitely I get paid more than them. That's the important thing, right? So that's what I'm talking about. It's the ability to ask for big money and get it. And most people, they try to work on the thing. It's not the thing. It's the thing that sells the thing.
The ability to close.
To close. It's never the thing. And here's the thing. People, they spend so much fucking time working on the thing. They're not spending enough time closing. And they say, well, let me just get better at what I do. I'll make more money. No. You get better at closing. What happens is you can charge more money. You can deliver more value. You can serve more people. You get more experience. You work with more people. Of course, then you get better. Compare someone who works with this many clients and you work with this many clients. Of course, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to get better. That's that chicken and egg thing.
That's also so true. Now, since we are on this topic, how can somebody improve their ability to close a client on the phone?
What I do is, that's probably what I'm most well known for, and I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I teach a program called High Ticket Closer Program, which I take people through a 7-week program from like not knowing anything about sales, from after 7 weeks being able to close, being a high ticket closer. So it takes a 7-week period where they learn the techniques and then also they role play with other students from all over the world, and actually not just learning passively, but you're practicing, right? And every week I teach them one module live with me on the phone, one-on-one. And we could be like the group, let's say you have a question about how to handle this objection. I unmute you and you do it. I will show you how to do it right on the spot, right? So that's what I teach. I think it takes a minimum of 7 weeks to teach that, and also to learn that. But it's a lot of different things from like it goes way beyond what I can cover in the video. But it's the way you ask questions, because the way you do high ticket sales is so different than traditional sales. Traditional sales. Give me some techniques, right?
Hey guys, this is Marian. I'm just going to pause this for a second because a lot of you that are on my list saw initially this interview on YouTube and asked me if I know anything about the HTC program, the High Ticket Closer Certification Program. And I decided to do a full in-depth tutorial about it since I was one of the students. I graduated season 7 and wanted to point out, pros and cons and everything about the program coming from a student perspective. So if you go to highticketcloserprogram.com, you'll be able to see my entire review of the program. Now, let's go back.
So cold calling, it could be that, cold calling, or they do stuff like traditional sales about the alternative clothes, right? Would you like it in blue? Would you like it in red, right? Would you like this?
Give people too many options.
Too many options, or all this bullshit, right? No. Like here's the problem. When you're selling low ticket stuff, that might work. Oh, how can I help you today? When it comes to high ticket sales, none of that shit works. You have to do the opposite. When you're selling high ticket offer, when you're selling something for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, the last thing you want is sound like a salesperson. Because no one wants to be sold. Everyone loves to buy, but they don't want to be sold.
Especially at that price, right?
They want to know, they want to feel like they are making a decision on their own. They don't want to feel like you twist their arm or you high pressure them to making the decision. Nobody likes that. Even though you could twist their arm and close that sales, there's buyer's remorse. When you're doing this stuff right, after you close the client, like a $20,000 sale, and the client's like, thank you for closing me. That's when you know you got this. And that's what happens to me, to my students, right? We close the sale and the client says, thank you.
Right, because he sees the value and understands
That's correct.
what kind of a value they get in exchange of
That's correct.
That amount.
They feel good and we feel good.
Now, I want to touch upon personal branding a little bit because your brand obviously speaks for itself, including the way your team is dressed up, the way they talk, the way they act. What's your opinion on this?
I very much subscribe to the principle, I believe, you cannot get rich looking poor. I think in North America, it's a lot of the dress casual and jeans and all that.
Yep.
And people always argue with me, oh, what about Steve Jobs? What about Richard Branson? They're billionaires, they dress casual. I say, if you're a billionaire, you can dress whatever the hell you want. Okay? But before you get to a billionaire, you better dress, because here's the thing. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So when you meet someone new, people do judge a book by its cover.
Yep.
You cannot help. So when you look good, simple question. When you look good, do you feel good? When you feel good, do you perform better? So I'm saying, if you look at what you do, you are promoting yourself all the time. You will dress accordingly. Like, think about this interview. How could Dan Lok be the king of high-ticket sales if today I'm wearing a cheap T-shirt and it doesn't make sense, right? You got to look apart. So I say, forget what everybody else does. You look at it, this conference, 3,000 people. You can immediately recognize who's my guy. That says something.
No, it really does. And that's why I said when I entered the vendor room, you could point out exactly which one is Dan Lok's team. Because, like I said, I was just talking to you about this, the way they're dressed up, the way they talk, the way they act. So yeah.
It's all part of it. So depends on what you want to do. So as a freelancer, as a consultant, I don't care what you do when you're out there meeting with people. You are promoting yourself, you are a brand. Here's the thing, you are a personal brand, regardless if you want to be or not. Because right now, people think of personal brand of they make it so complex. It just means people's impression of you. Right now, when you go out there and meet people, they have an impression of you. It may be good, may be bad, I don't know.
It is one.
It is one. And so I say, why not be strategic? Why not be in charge of how you want the world to perceive you? When you're at home, trust me, when I'm at home, that's fine. Be casual, in my underwear, that's perfectly fine.
All right. Dan, you shared so much with us today. What I want to ask you is not even necessarily a summary, because I'll do that in my blog and in the show notes, but if you'd want to simplify the process for someone that would like to achieve a high-end clientele or status in their business, what do you think, what would you tell them to do in maybe a couple steps?
I'll wrap it up with a story, okay? And then I'll give you the idea. So many years ago, I was attending a conference, a 2-day conference, in fact. And the time was like in digital marketing. We're talking many, many years ago. So the first day, the speaker stood up there on stage. He was talking about how you can add more subscribers to your email list. Now, back then, we're talking old time. He was teaching a concept on how to add a pop-up to your homepage.
Yep.
Like a little pop-up, right? And he said, by adding this, you get more subscribers. I said, cool. So day one, when I went back to my hotel room, I called my web guy and said, hey, you know what? We're gonna add this pop-up and we're gonna test this out. And it worked. It doubled the amount of opt-in we were getting. So day two, when I went back and just shared with the speaker, hey man, I implemented a strategy, it really worked. I doubled my subscriber rate. Now in the audience, there must be probably around 500 people or so. And then he asked the question, oh, this is great, Dan implemented a strategy, it worked. Put up your hand, how many of you also implemented a strategy?
Nobody.
0. No hand went up.
So no execution.
I was shocked. I thought everybody implemented. I thought everybody was like me. Of course you implement. What do you mean? Go to a conference, you learn, you implement this shit. Nobody. That's when I got it. The moment when you felt like you're a little bit different, you're special? That's the moment when I felt, you know what? I thought everybody was like this. Nobody was like this. So over the years, my competitive advantage is my speed. Nowadays, it's not the big fish that is the small fish. It's the fast fish that is the big fish. It's not how much you know. Remember, we're talking about how much information? It's how fast you can execute. Because whatever that you know, 6 months, a year from now, it's going to be obsolete. So it's how fast you know and how fast you can learn and how fast you can implement. So my competitive advantage over the years, that's why there's some people, I always say, don't study the people. Oh, I went from 0 to $1 million in whatever months. I went from 0 to whatever $5 million in whatever months. Don't be so impressed by those guys. Study the guys who have success for a long period of time. So you see, oh, are they just fly by night? Are they here 2 years from now? Are they here 5 years from now? Are they here 15 years from now? Are they going like this, or are they like, you can see most guys, including this conference, gone.
Or different industry.
Or different, whatever they're doing, right? Are they still like this? Study there's 1 in 100,000 that are like this over the years. They're like very rested. You want to study guys like that. So, speed, money, love, speed. Let me go back to answer your question. 3-step blueprint, 5-step blueprint, 3-step formula. The problem is the very idea of high ticket or entrepreneurship. It's about innovation. It's about doing stuff that nobody's had done, nobody thought of before. The minute you want to look for that, you're going against the very nature of entrepreneurship. You're doing what the other people have done. The minute you're looking for that blueprint, you're not an entrepreneur. You're not going to go very far. Because the minute you say, you know what, I'm gonna learn from everybody, but I'm not looking for rules. I'm simply looking for maybe some principles or a rough idea that I could filter and I can implement. And then from the implementation, from my own interpretation experience, I will find out what works or not. It's like martial art. You learn from an instructor. Hey, you know what? You shouldn't kick. You shouldn't kick. Okay, don't kick. The instructor was telling you don't kick because he's not flexible. Doesn't mean you shouldn't kick. You've got long leg, you're flexible. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not like, but we take it from, oh yeah, don't kick. You don't want to do that. Oh, you don't want to hit this way. You want to do that way. No, you got to take, and that's one thing I have so much respect for my instructor, my Sifu. He said, don't believe a word that I say. Day one. He said, whatever I'm teaching you, you experiment. I'm going to teach you, you try it on yourself. I'm like, that's the greatest teacher I could ever have. Day one, he said, don't believe a word I say. Because every single teacher says, do exactly what I say. No, so don't believe a word I say. What works for me might not work for you. I want you to try it. I want you to think independently. I want you to think for your own. And that's what I want to teach you. Forget the steps, because what works for someone, the 5-step, maybe it's 3 steps for you. Maybe it's 10 steps for you. I don't know you. I don't know your situation. I don't know your background. I don't know your skill. How would that even, doesn't make sense. And here's the thing. What I could do now doesn't mean you could do. On the other hand, what you could do doesn't mean what I could do.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode because Dan really shared some powerful information with all of us. Now, again, for all of you that were wondering what is this high ticket closer certification program that Dan runs, I invite you to highticketcloserprogram.com, where I personally do a complete in-depth review about it. And that can give you, a different insight from a student perspective. And you may have some questions. We have some answers for you over there. So go to highticketcloserprogram.com and you'll be able to watch the video, read all the notes over there. And any questions that you have, just hit the support button in there and you'll be able to ask them right there. All right, thanks a lot for listening, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Hey, podcast listeners, I want you to know that I really appreciate your attention and I don't take it lightly. That's why each month we pick a lucky winner and we give away books, mentorship, software, courses, iPads, and other cool stuff. The way to enter is go to clientacquisitionpodcast.com and sign up. You'll get all the details there. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.